to our latest NWSL Challenge Cup date. I'm Jason Longshore, joined by Jessica Charman. And Jess, we had some results in the midweek that neither one of us expected.
No, if we were betting people, Jason, we wouldn't be doing very well during this tournament, that's for sure. But it's a sign of a good tournament. You know, you don't want things to be so predictable, so inevitable that it gets tiring. And right now in the NWSL Challenge Cup, the only thing that's predictable is the fact that North Carolina Courage are just pretty darn good.
Yeah, the most predictable thing has proven to be true. Everything else, it's a mess. We'll have a lot of fun talking about the games coming up to close out the group stage. It's tomorrow on Sunday and on Monday, 12:30 and 10 o'clock kicks. We'll get into each of those in just a second, but briefly on how we got here and how we got the table to where it is. OL Reign with their first win of the tournament, a very late goal from Bethany Balser. We talked about this when it happened. It's a dangerous cross. I don't know if Nicole Barnhart could have got to the cross, but reaction to the header from Balser was a little late.
Yeah, I texted you at the time because not much has happened throughout the entire game. It wasn't one that you really would want to spend 90 minutes watching back. But this moment to me kind of showed that Barnhart might be getting to that stage in her career where her reactions are slowing down. And she's a quality goalkeeper, but she's 38 years old now. And for me, Utah need a goalkeeper that maybe reacts to those things a little bit quicker. You're right, Jason. I don't think it's a ball she should come to, but she gets sort of like a half hand on it. And I think 2-3 years ago, or maybe we're being a little harsh here, maybe she didn't have the prep for the tournament, but I think she saves that one and reacts a little bit quicker. And you have to wonder whether Utah's going to be looking at fresh blood in goal, at least if NWSL gets a different season. Maybe not during this tournament. It's a little too soon to be switching things up, but you've got to be looking towards the future at this point.
Yeah, we've seen Abby Smith in goal for Utah, and I think Abby's been solid. But this one, I mean, it's tough because Barnhart had made 4 saves in the match leading up to this. Both teams had some chances in the game, but it was just kind of a disjointed match. I thought Michelle Betos, the former University of Georgia goalkeeper, had a couple of big plays for OL Reign coming in and getting the start in this one. Mm-hmm. My issue on that goal... Oh, go ahead on Betos, sorry.
No, I was going to say it just shows how, you know, there's two types of people when they come and make their debut. Those that are extremely nervous, but she didn't play like she was nervous. She didn't play like a goalkeeper that was fresh to the team. And that's what, as a goalkeeper, you need. You can't have someone that's timid coming in and not prepared to talk to their defensive line. And she slotted right in. Her communication was key. And, you know, what better way to start than with a shutout?
It's a huge result for Betos. It's a huge result for Reign. The goal from Balser, it's a great run from her late, but the center backs, and Utah's playing 3, just completely got split apart. Balser ran between 2, and it was way too clean of a header. That looked like some of the frustration that Barnhart had in her reaction afterwards.
I mean, when you see a header that clean and that unchallenged, you have to question your defensive line. And yes, she's frustrated that her defense didn't track, but communication again is key. There has to be better communication between the goalkeeper, between the center backs, because you can see everything there. And that late on in the game, how frustrating that you have that lax moment and you're punished for it. But, you know, OL Reign's got to be thrilled that they've capitalized on it. And what a great way to get your momentum coming into this 4th game that's going to be so important when it comes to placement.
Yeah, they needed that. They've been a team that's had a lot of the ball in this tournament, but they haven't found many goals. They get a timely one to get their first win. Sky Blue gets their first win and looked actually pretty dominant over the Houston Dash, a team that I've been really high on. I had them as high as number 2 in the tournament. Not anymore.
Who is this Sky Blue team that showed up, though?
Well, I mean, they did a couple of things we've talked about. You know, we talked about Ifeoma Onumanu up top and how important she was. I thought she was big in this game. She assisted on the opening goal. But they looked great going forward, creating 6 shots on goal.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about with Sky Blue. We were pretty convinced by them defensively. I mean, they've only conceded once, I believe, in the entire tournament. So defensively, they seemed set up. But we had been questioning how much they had going forward. Yes, Onamanu was playing well, but they were kind of just missing that final connecting pass. And their 2 goals showed now that they seem to be in the same rhythm each other, and they were playing more fearlessly. They were playing like a team that believes that they're defensively sound, so that now they can go forward. They can start taking those risks and overloading. And what a fantastic result for Sky Blue. And as we mentioned, that puts them all the way up in second, I think, when I looked at the table, because of their goal difference and because they've been able to keep so tight defensively.
Kaylin Sheridan had a 1-save clean sheet here. Those are got to be some of the best kind of clean sheets you can get when you don't have much to do. With Sky
you take
Blue,
every clean sheet, but that one definitely something that she's not used to, something that she's that she's ever been used to. And again, defensively, that means that they're stepping to the ball, they're preventing good shots. So Sky Blue really, really looking to impress, but Houston not the best. And again, we did wonder about their consistency at the start of the tournament, and that sort of showed.
The biggest difference for me with Sky Blue, Onamanu was part of it, but it was the midfield trio and a player that we've mentioned a few times here on the CupDate, Jennifer Cujo. She got her first start. And that midfield trio of Cujo, McCall Zerboni, and Sarah Waldmo was gritty at breaking up everything Houston tried to create, but wasn't just defensive. They were also able to get forward and start attacks. I thought that midfield trio and that performance was as good as we've seen in the tournament.
Absolutely, and that's what they're going to need, because they've got the toughest game of the tournament laying up, and I know we'll get into it, but you need that grit. You need that willingness to commit a foul at the right time. You know, it's not a problem to commit a foul on the halfway line, but like you say, Jason, the fact that they were going forward and building up in that midfield, that's something that we hadn't seen so much from Sky Blue. So, you know, when I woke up and saw the result, I couldn't believe it, and I watched it back, and I was extremely impressed. That was the most complete performance from Sky Blue.
Yeah, I think it was one of the most complete performances in the tournament. I mean, outside of North Carolina, that was as dominant of a performance as we've seen in the whole event. That puts Sky Blue in second in the table. North Carolina's first. They've clinched the number 1 seed in the knockout round. The rest of it is just who knows. Sky Blue's number 2 with 4 points, and they have a +1 goal differential. Houston Dash are next with 4 points, but a 0 goal differential. They are ahead of the Utah Royals, who are on the same points, same goal differential, but Houston has scored 1 more goal. Then it's OL Reign and Washington Spirit. Both have 4 points, just like the other 3 teams, but they have a -1 goal differential. The Washington Spirit have scored 3 goals, conceded 4. OL Reign's been a little bit tighter. Only the 1 goal from Balser. They've conceded 2. Portland Thorns have not won a match yet, 2 draws, and they're on 2 points. And then the Chicago Red Stars, 1 draw. They're on 1 point. Did not expect to see Chicago and Portland at the bottom of the table at this point.
No, absolute shocker from those 2 teams. And you know what? Maybe Portland feels a little bit hard done by. You flash back to that first game of the tournament, how they lost 2-1 and potentially were pretty unlucky there. And that sort of set the scene for the rest of their tournament. And then Chicago Red Stars, just underwhelming, worst goal difference in the tournament. And if they don't get a win this weekend and other games kind of go in favor of them, they're looking at playing North Carolina in the first round, and they wouldn't have expected that seeding, that's for sure.
Yeah, nobody wants to see North Carolina in the quarterfinal. You know, you want to avoid that number 8 seed, and it's going to be interesting to see how these games go. So it's Sunday and Monday. The first game on Sunday, I think, has the potential to be one of the more fun games in the event. Washington and Houston, 2 teams that we have seen score a lot of goals, 2 teams that we've seen concede a lot of goals, and 2 teams that have a lot to play for to get into that, at least the 2-3 spot, so you avoid North Carolina as long as you can.
Yeah, 100%. It really is about playing for positioning, and that's what makes it so fascinating. There were some concerns when Orlando dropped out that maybe now that everyone knows they're getting through to the knockouts, is there as much to play for? Well, when you've got a number one seed like North Carolina, you want to never play them until the final, and that's obviously expecting North Carolina to win their knockout rounds. With this game, I just think it's so fascinating because both teams have been a little bit unpredictable in terms of which version of themselves are going to show up. And you have to wonder, with Houston in particular, are they going to be shaken up by the fact they lost 2-0 to Sky Blue? I don't think they'd have expected that result coming into this matchup.
No, not at all. And that's a good point. How do they come out of this? Because this is a pretty new team with the Dash. I look at the numbers, and these are two teams who have mostly played on the counter in this tournament. And somebody's got to take the initiative with the ball here. Houston has had the lowest possession in the tournament at 46%. Washington has had it 48%. I don't know which one is going to try to step up and control the play here. Maybe I lean a little bit more towards Washington because of a player like
And
Lavelle.
that would be mine. And that was exactly what I'm thinking. When you've got a player like Lavelle, I think she's going to want to get on the ball. She's going to want to play her style of soccer. And they've also almost got that youthful fearlessness about them that maybe if they have the right motivational talk beforehand, that they come out and they just look to dominate. And with Dash, like you say, they've had good performances, but it's mainly been on the counterattack against the run of play. You know, you look back at their big 3-3 tie, and yes, they were convincing for a period of the game, but again, they crashed. So I think if you're Dash, you've got some issues with your mentality potentially. And the concern for Houston would be if Spirit score early on, are they then going to crumble and sort of cave in a little bit to that?
The late game on Sunday, Chicago and Utah, I don't know what Chicago's got to do differently here, because when you dig into the numbers on them a little bit, it's really strange. Like, they've got less than 50% of the ball in their matches, but they've only had 16 shots in their 3 games. They've only had 4 on target. 1 goal. This is a team, they're missing Sam Kerr, but this is a team with some attacking talent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't know what happened to them, because yes, they're missing Kerr, but we talked about it. They have so much quality on that pitch. They have played together, and they've just come out and not looked like the Red Stars that we really know. And it's disappointing. And now, again, I use mentality to talk about Dash, but they've got to get out of their heads. And I think the issue is when you're underachieving so much, every game becomes more important. And you wonder, are they going to cave under this pressure, or are they going to thrive in it? And I think it's a really unpredictable match. I think it helps them that Utah had that heartbreaking loss towards the end in midweek. I think that might be on the back of their minds. They haven't had very long to recover from that, obviously, with the midweek game. So maybe they're playing the right side in this sort of match. But I don't know. I sure hope they've been, with those conversion stats on, shots on goal, I hope they've been working on the training pitch, because that's a concern too, to only have 4 shots on goal.
I almost wonder if they've been good defensively. That's why they've been in matches. But I almost wonder if you have to move Julie Ertz into the midfield and give her license to go forward.
But I love to. Yes, you just need a team of Julie Ertz's. If you're Chicago Red Stars, let's be honest. If you could duplicate her and at least have one at centre back and one in the midfield, because her game at that centre back position last match, and I was raving all about her to you, she just was everywhere. Her distribution was good out the back, and she's a true leader from that defensive position. But while she makes those runs, even from the centre back position, she's not doing it enough to have an impact going forward consistently. So I think you're right, Jason. You might have to take a risk at this point. You're playing Utah, who haven't looked that convincing in front of goal either lately. So maybe you take that risk in order, because you've got to take the game to them, and you've got to get on the score sheet at this point.
It's when you dig even a step beyond on Chicago, it's even more surprising where they're at. There's a great Twitter account, if you guys haven't started following them during the tournament, NWSL Analytica. It's out of Argentina, but they go into some of the stats and deep dive stuff on these matches. And Chicago is the best team in the tournament at winning duels. They're the best team in the tournament in terms of winning tackles. Like, they're doing things. It's not like they're struggling and they're not producing anything. They just cannot get anything going forward. And if it's not Ertz, you look at the front five that I think we can safely expect in this match. You look at players like Vanessa DiBernardo, Morgan Gautreau, Keelia Watt, Rachel Hill, Yuki Nagasato. Who has to step up and give them something going forward in your mind?
I've liked Watt in moments. I just don't think she's been consistent enough. There are moments when she's running at defenders where she looks like your defender's worst nightmare, but then her delivery into the box has just been underwhelming at times. So I'd like to see more of her. And then Nagasato, with so much experience, you need her to play out her skin at this point. And she's blown hot and cold. There's been games where I've praised her, games where we've been underwhelmed. And I think she just needs to do a little bit more with that experience that she has under her belt to sort of lead by example.
I'm almost to the point that they should move the pieces around a little bit. I'd rather see Watt as the number 9, and that's been the biggest issue they've had is you don't have that true number 9 without Sam Kerr in this team anymore. Nagasato's more of a 10, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Put her a little bit deeper. Get Watt central instead of flaring out wide. Maybe it's Rachel Hill who pairs with Nagasato in the attacking midfield. Move the pieces around. It might take letting Julia Ertz go, even if she's a center back, picking those runs to go forward. Something to shake it up against a Utah team that has been another one of those that's been up and down, hot and cold, and we're still trying to get a read on. I think Chicago's the better team. I think I thought they would have done something in the first 3. I think they have to do something here.
Yeah, it goes without saying because they were my pick to get to the final, but I was expecting a Chicago of last season potentially, and I didn't think Kerr was going to have such an impact. I thought they still had goals in them, but alas, not so far. But you're right, Jason. The pieces are there. The talent is without a doubt on this team. It's just something not quite clicking right now, and they need to figure it out. They need to figure it out fast.
Let's get to the Monday games. The early one is a rivalry, and it's going to be played a little bit differently than they're used to. OL Reign and the Portland Thorns. Reign has a win. The Thorns don't, but they've got 2 draws. Portland really hasn't seemed to click. They're getting a ton of shots, but they're just not really converting much of anything. And Reign looked a whole lot better in that last game. What do you think about this one?
Again, unpredictable, but I think what's interesting about this is Portland benefit from playing on the Monday because they are going to know in advance how Red Stars do. They're going to know whether, they need a win to stay out of that bottom position. So that'll be interesting, and I think that may change the way that they attack the game based on that. With OL Reign, again, yes, they picked up that win, but did they look convincing? Not to me. And this one just has, I think it has a tie all over it. I think it's going to be a really scrappy tie. I've just not been impressed by either team really in the tournament so far. And as I say, will Portland be content if they know that Chicago doesn't pick up points or that they know that their position is set? Will they be content with holding out?
I think you nailed it in scrappy. Portland's a physical team. We've seen that for years. OL Reign has the most fouls in the tournament, so this is going to be physical. And if there are goals, I think they're coming from set pieces. I don't think you're going to have much of a rhythm in it. You talk about a team that breaks up somebody's rhythm. It's North Carolina Courage. They get sky blue in that last game. You mentioned on Monday these teams have a little bit of an advantage because they'll know what's happened before when it gets down to placement. Sky Blue will know a lot here. North Carolina's already got their spot sealed. I wonder if the Courage rest people. They're deep enough to do it, but I wonder if they rest people, and then we see a Sky Blue team that maybe's in a spot that they like or maybe feels like they have to open things up.
And that's what I had in my notes. North Carolina have the depth. They're not afraid of rotation as it is, let alone knowing that no one can catch them at this point. They've got 9 points. They're clear. With Sky Blue, though, as I mentioned, defensively, they've been really organized. So if anyone's going to be prepared to deal with the Courage, I think they'll come in with a game plan. They've got a good goal difference as it is. And like you say, they'll know what they need to do. They'll know what their goal difference needs to maintain at. And, if anything, maybe they just try and hold out for a draw and play things defensively and hope to catch something on a counter or get a nice set piece somewhere. But I think Freya Kum's going to come in with a good game plan, and she would be lying if she said that she wouldn't be influenced with knowing where they're in the table at that point, because you don't want to go out and drop 3 spots based on conceding three goals because you tried too hard to get the victory.
I think Sky Blue should come in with the exact same lineup that they played in their last match. And I know it's on a little bit shorter rest, but I think they found their group. And this is the group that gives them the best opportunity. That Zerboni, Cujo, Woldmo combo in midfield. Onamanu up top is essential for me. And if she's not 90 minutes fit, I think you've got to get at least 60 out of her.
You still start her.
Yeah.
You need to have her because you've got to stay in the game. You can't bring on these players because you wanted to rest them and think they're going to make a difference once the game's already got beyond you. You have to stay in this game for as long as possible, compete with that strong team. And look, yes, the turnaround's a little quick. Yes, Wednesday to Monday. But let's be honest, these are professional soccer players that, have been training. They want to play and they're used to playing a pretty tough schedule. So I think they'll be just fine. And I'm excited to see how Sky Blue show up, and they're going to be feeling on a real high. And as much as they had the loss in the middle of the tournament, they've not looked bad in any game so far.
No, they haven't, and they've only conceded that one. I don't think they'll keep Washington off the board. I don't even know if we get into it, I think Sky Blue getting a result here is a long shot.
Unlikely.
But I think they can play well and gain in confidence from it. And that's where they should be shooting for here, because even with the table being as crazy as it is, they're going to avoid North Carolina in that quarterfinal. So outside of that, Sky Blue's got as good a shot as anybody to get to the final. That's what's so crazy about this tournament in the last week.
Yeah, I'm glad, like I say, we didn't place any bets early on because things have changed. Things have been unpredictable, but it's what makes it a great tournament, particularly for all the neutrals out there watching. And it's been fantastic. The quality's been there. And if these fourth round games, they're really going to live up to something, because now teams are playing for real purpose. They know what they need to do to avoid North Carolina. And North Carolina's just going to, sit on top of their throne for now and see who they're going to face in the quarters.
And then they'll have a 3-game knockout tournament to get through to keep that crown, and kind of a unique trophy coming out of this season. Last reminder, it's Washington, Houston, Sunday, 12:30. Chicago, Utah, Sunday at 10 o'clock. Monday, 12:30, it's OL Reign and Portland. And then the nightcap is Sky Blue and the North Carolina Courage. Everything's on CBS All Access. This will conclude the group stage, and it'll give us our bracket for the knockout round. We'll be back next week to preview that, and we will give you predictions. I don't know if we're going to go talk to the bookie or anything about this, but we're going to give you predictions at least on how we think that bracket's going to go. Make sure you're following Jess Talks Footy with an IE. Make sure you're following Longshoe and Soccer down here, and we'll be back to talk about all of it next week. Enjoy the matches, y'all.